Hey guys, welcome to the Nate Whitson Show. I am your host, and I'm super glad that you're here. Please forgive me up front for sounding maybe a little goofier than normal. It's allergy season here in Michigan, and it's kicking my butt. So if I do like this and scratch my nose and sound like a goof, that's probably why. I'm going to try not to do that in the mic too often, the whole sniffing and sneezing and all that, but no promises that it won't be a little crazy today. So, August, Michigan, that's how this goes. Anyways, I'm a habits and behavioral change coach, primarily for Christian men, although I do know and hear people say, like, hey, this is true for everybody. And that's true. But my focus, my heart is for Christian men. And my goal is to help us to learn to align our behaviors with our beliefs. The notion that Christians are hypocrites is true. It's true of all people, actually. It's true of those that call us hypocrites, that they too are also hypocritical, because the things that we say and the things that we do are often not aligned. And I want to help myself, primarily, first and foremost, to live this out and to be a man of honor and discipline, strength and joy. Those are the four principles of Get in the Fight ministry that I help run and lead. And again, it's a personal journey to try to become that guy. And then as I work on me, it tends to resonate with other Christian men who are trying to do the same. So again, if you're listening and all those things relate and resonate with you, I should say, then thanks for being here. Do me a favor really quick before we jump into today's show, and just click the notification button, hit the subscribe button for wherever you're listening here, and then help me to spread the word by simply, again, subscribing helps, but also commenting and then sharing it with a friend. Sometimes even just, sending one podcast at a time, one show at a time to a friend and be like, hey, this one I think you're going to like. It's one man at a time kind of mission here. And the more men we reach, the better, as the mission for Christ is big. So again, thanks for your support. Thanks for listening to the show. If you want to learn more about Get in the Fight, there's a lot of great resources, a newsletter that comes out twice a week. It's super popular. The podcast obviously is free. The Fight Club community that has men from all over the world in there, totally free for Christian men. Learn all about that at getinthefight.club, not .com, it's .club, getinthefight.club. Find out more. Thanks for being here. Today, I want to talk about the power of a real decision. The power of a real decision. And it comes out of a conversation that just happened recently. We were having something at my house called a campfire conversation. And this is simply something that we do here as part of our ministry with men, to get men around a fire, to get men talking. And, rather than just talking sports and, conversations of everyday nature, we're trying to have meaningful conversations and trying to learn to get men engaged at a deeper heart level. And so in this particular day, we were talking about this idea of, like, what are some of the great moments in your life? What have been some of the really difficult seasons or moments of your life? And, like, what have you learned? What has God been doing? And just great conversations. And so in that, one of my friends that was here was talking about the consequences of decisions in his life and just kind of where it's led him to today, and how everything changed, in his words. Everything changed when he made a decision to follow Jesus. And he kind of just went on from there and told more of his story. And it just really hit me as he was talking about how not all decisions that we make are the same. They're not all equal. And so, like, listening to this guy talk, you could really tell that he wasn't saying, like, I went into this thing half-hearted, or it wasn't a decision that he made that was light. It was this life-altering decision where you're putting a stake in the ground kind of thing, right? Like, it was this moment of, I've got nowhere else to go. There is no other option for me kind of decision. And as he was talking, I just thought, man, in my own journey, in my own life, and in listening to stories from men from around the world, I constantly feel like I'm fighting against, and men are fighting against, this idea of, we've said that we've made decisions to change, and we haven't done it. And I think it has everything to do with whether or not it was a real decision or not. So, like, we'll use the language of that, of like, man, I made a decision to stop smoking. I made a decision to, like, watch my language. I made a decision to read my Bible more, or whatever. And now I'm going to really try hard to do it. This is the language difference between what we say is a decision and then, like, a real decision. And that's what I want to talk about today. There's power in a real decision like my friend talked about versus what I tend to do, what you might tend to do when you've said, man, there's an area of life that I want to change, but it's half-hearted, right? Maybe you know exactly what I'm saying. It's like you've gone into it hoping to change. You like the idea of change. You like where it could lead you if you change. But your decision to change or not to was half-hearted at best. It was hopeful, but it wasn't concrete like my friend talked about. It made me think of it this way. Like imagine a scenario or situation where you are, let's say you're the one, you're at the doctor's office and you find out today that you have a chronic illness. It's a life or death kind of thing, right? Like if you don't handle this chronic illness the right way, it's going to cost you everything, right? Imagine getting that news and making a decision to change your health, for example, versus the everyday guy like maybe you and I who go, man, you really should change. What a difference, right? What a difference. What a contrast that is to be diagnosed with something that says like, man, this is a chronic illness that's never going to go away. You're going to have to be diligent about this and you need to make some changes right now. That kind of approach versus I hope it works out, but if it doesn't, I'm probably still going to be just fine. Those are like worlds apart. And what I'm saying to you today, and I really hope this comes across what I'm feeling like from this conversation, what I hope gets translated to you is there is such a huge difference between somebody who feels like it's life or death and I have to make this change and somebody who goes, I kind of hope that works. I hope that I can lose weight. I hope that I can fix this relationship. I hope that I can make some changes. It would be nice if I did versus it's life or death. I have nowhere else to go, right? It kind of made me think of, some stories from scripture. And I was just trying to think of like men in the Bible who have made solid, life-altering decisions, that there was power in the decision-making. The first guy I was thinking of was Joshua. The story of Joshua is so great. Joshua 24:15 says, but as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. It was this like stake in the ground, no turning back moment decision, this powerful decision where he kind of is looking out over the audience, looking out to the rest of Israel saying, you can do what you want to do. But as for me, the decision's been made, right? What a powerful thing that is in Joshua. Let's look at the story of Moses, right? Moses, it says Hebrews 11:24-25, chose to be mistreated rather than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. Moses had an option. He had a choice. And he said, I'm going to choose to be mistreated. He made a decision in that moment, and he decided in his heart of hearts that God's way was worth more than the pleasures of Pharaoh's palace. He knew to abandon what God was calling him to, the core of who he was. He knew that he could take the easy route, but he made a decision, a real decision, a life-altering decision to be mistreated rather than pampered, right? What an amazing story in the life of Moses. Or how about Daniel? Daniel, it says, resolved not to defile himself. Daniel 1:8. Daniel was this young guy, but he made a firm, costly decision in a culture where he was brought into that wasn't close to home. It was pulling him in the other direction. And again, he just knew for him to eat everything the way that everybody else was, or to treat his life the way that everybody else was treating it, was wrong for him. And he resolved, decided, chose not to do that, not to defile himself. Daniel, Joshua, Moses, they all made decisions. In the New Testament, we see that the disciples, in lots of different scenarios, decided to follow Jesus. And it says, like in Matthew 4, at once they left their nets and they followed him. The decision to follow and to say, I'm going to give up my livelihood. I'm going to give up my comfort. I'm going to give up everything because I think he's the one. I'm going to follow Jesus all the way. That was a life-altering decision for the disciples. How about Paul in Acts chapter 9, the Damascus Road encounter? Paul goes from persecutor to preacher, right? Paul makes decision after decision to say, even if I'm stranded on an island, even if I'm beaten near death, even if I'm stoned and left for dead, I made a decision that it doesn't matter what happens to me. I consider my life nothing compared to sharing the gospel, right? He said, like, I made a decision because I used to be the worst and considered himself the worst of all sinners. He knows how much grace has been given to him. And Paul becomes this man that turns the world upside down. We all owe so much to Paul. Why? Because Paul made a decision, and it wasn't a light one. Paul, like Joshua and like Moses and like Daniel and like the other disciples, they make this decision just like my friend talked about at the campfire conversation. It was a decision that wasn't light. It was a decision that wasn't emotional. It was a decision that wasn't like, I'm going to give this Jesus thing a try. You know what I mean? Like, it was a decision of saying, I'm all in. There is no other option. This has to work. This is where I'm going. This is what I will accomplish. Hey guys, I wanted to take a quick break from the show to share with you 3 things that I think could help you to become more of the man that God meant for you to be: a better husband, a better father, and a better follower of Jesus Christ. 3 things, totally free, that I think can help you. Number 1 is our podcast. Hit the subscribe button, share them with a friend. That makes a big difference, not only in your life, but in somebody else that you care about as well. And it helps us to reach more men. Number 2, we do a free weekly newsletter that is short, it's concise, it deals with just one key question and then 3 simple action items each week that will help you to get in the fight in a really practical way. You can find that at getinthefight.club/newsletter. And then lastly, you can join our Fight Club community. This is a free private app for Christian men only, where you can talk to guys and get involved with guys' lives from all around the world who are just like you, trying to get in the fight to be better men for Christ. You get things like daily devos, weekly challenges, monthly gatherings, small groups, so much more. It's kind of like a Facebook group, but exclusively for Christian men, and it's totally awesome, and it's totally free. getinthefight.club/join and check it out. Get more today. So subscribe to the YouTube channel, get our newsletter, get involved in our Fight Club. Totally free things to help you to get in the fight and win today. All right, that's it for now. Thanks for listening. Back to the show. My point to you today is that change is really hard. Becoming the man that God meant for you to be is really hard. Aligning your behavior with your belief is really hard. And why it's so difficult in many cases is simply because we've never really made a decision to do the hard thing, right? We're in love with the idea of being a stronger man. But when it comes to getting up earlier, we're very weak. We like the idea of having a great relationship with our wife, but when it comes to having to say you're sorry or admit your weakness or do things that she enjoys that you can't stand, we're very weak. We don't want to put the effort in. When it comes to being a great dad, we like the idea, but we haven't really made a firm decision to say, you know what, I'm going to stop chasing money in overtime and I want to pursue a relationship, which means I've got to maybe give up getting ahead and keeping up with my neighbors and coworkers for the sake of having a great relationship with them, right? Whatever that thing is in your life, think about your own story right now and the decisions that you need to make. How many times have you gone into it and made a resolute decision? You've resolved it in your heart that there is no other option. You are going to do that thing. How many times have you done that? Versus going, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to try this thing out, right? The thing that makes a real decision different than a hopeful wishing that most of us do is that a real decision is born from sincerity. It's born from surrender oftentimes. It's born from the truth that, you know what, I haven't really made a decision to change. That's the truth. Why are you not where you need to be? Why am I not? I'll just talk to me. Why am I not better in different areas of my life? Many times it's because I haven't really made a decision to do it. I've toyed with the idea, and if it doesn't work, you know what? It's not like a critical, or I should say chronic illness. It's not like if I don't do it, everything's going to fall apart, right? And because of that, and because I treat it that way, I have failed in many ways to be the man I want to be. And I think for you, it's probably a similar story, right? A wish is like, I would like things to be different, but a decision is I can't stay the same. Think about that, right? A wish is I like the idea. A decision is I won't settle for anything less. There is no other option for me. I think when we get to the powerful side of a real decision, it's that real decision brings real change, and that's hard, right? Real change reshapes us. It reshapes our identity. It reshapes our priorities. It reshapes the daily actions that we have to take. And it's the thing that we really need to do the most. We need to get to the point where we treat it like this chronic illness that if we don't resolve it, somebody is going to be hurt. Something is going to fall apart. And I just want you to think about that in your own story for right now. What's at stake in your life if you don't decide to change? What's at stake there for you, right? Like in a lot of cases for us, we haven't connected to that really deeper, powerful thing deep inside because we don't give it enough we don't give it any thought, maybe at all, right? It's not thoughtful at all. And I want you to think for a minute here. Maybe you just need to even pause this as you're driving or listening or whatever. And I want you to very seriously consider what's at stake if you don't change. That thing in your life right now that you're thinking of, that relationship or that goal, that result, that outcome, whatever it is, if you don't get it, what's at stake? What happens if you don't get there, right? When's the last time that you made a real decision to change in that area? Have you ever made a real decision, a powerful decision, I'm all in and there are no other options decision to change? Or have you simply fallen in love with the idea of what it might look like to change, but if it doesn't, it's really not that big a deal? Do you remember the story of Cortez? I can't remember how long ago it was, but this story from back in school and you're studying history. And the story of Cortez and his crew was the Spanish guy that talked about burning the ships. Do you remember that story? The burning the ship story had to do with like they land in Mexico, and in order to keep his men from turning around and retreating, he orders that all the ships are burned, right? What happens when all the ships are burned and you're on a land far, far away from home? You've got no other option, right? If you burn the ships, there is no turning around. If you burn the ships and you lose everything. And so there's a new resolve that comes, right? You've got to fight to win. You've got to fight to simply survive. And I don't know exactly what it will take for you and I to get to that point, because sometimes we're thinking, well, this isn't life or death if I stop cursing, or if I don't have more joy in my life, or whatever the goal is. You're looking at that and going, I don't know if it's that big a deal. I just would like to see it change, right? I bet some of you are thinking that right now. This isn't life or death, though. But what I want you to connect to is what's at stake if you don't. And I bet it's heavier than you're giving it maybe enough thought on today. I want you to really consider what's at stake. Staying the same and not changing doesn't just affect you. That's what you need to know. Staying the same and not changing affects your wife if you're married, or your future wife. It affects your kids or your future kids and grandkids. It affects your legacy, how people think of you, right? The few sentences that will be used at your funeral to remember who you are and what you've done and why your life mattered, right? Your staying the same affects your legacy and your future in heaven. If you are born again and you are in Christ, you are secure in getting to heaven. But what if you got to heaven and God says, hey, give an account now of what you did with all that I gave you? I think that day is coming. And I don't think it'll necessarily be a you're in or out conversation. I think it's going to impact what's happening next. When you close your eyes for the last time here on this earth and you wake up in the presence of the Lord, you will be in. If you are in Christ, I believe you will be in heaven. You will be in his presence. You will be good for eternity. However, I think that there's more to come. I think that we ought to really consider that this brief life that we live as men here impacts the forever future. And many of us may get there and say, man, why didn't I go all in? Why didn't I burn the ships? Why didn't I take this more seriously? Why would I have traded what's in front of me here now in eternity for a life of mediocrity and wimpiness and all the rest? Why didn't I give it more? I think there's more at stake than we realize. And if we could tap into that, I think there's power in it. Most of us simply don't connect to it because we don't take enough time to. We don't ever ask the question, what's at stake, until the consequences of life hit you so hard that you go, oh no, now I've got this chronic illness, or now my relationships are falling apart, or my life's falling apart. We don't need to wait until we get to that point, I don't think, where everything is falling apart for us to learn. Hopefully we are gaining wisdom and learning that there's power in making a real decision. And a real decision is different than a wishful one. That's really what I want you to hear today. There's more at stake than you might think in your own life, in your future. And for those that you care about the most, my inability to be the man that God meant for me to be means that my wife and my kids and my grandkids, future grandkids, my friendships, maybe even you who is now impacted in listening to me talk right now, you are impacted potentially because of my failure to be the man that God meant for me to be. That's a heavy load. And hopefully it's heavy enough to get me to move. Hopefully it's heavy enough to get me to make a real decision to change my life. And hopefully for you, more importantly, it does the same for you. Hopefully you can connect to that thing that's way deeper. It's like that guy that gets that chronic illness diagnosis. All of a sudden everything changes. And a real decision to change makes sense. And you've got to go like, you know what? I got to burn the ships. Now it's not a game anymore. I got to change because there's so much riding on it. And man, I hope you hear that today. There's so much at stake riding on your life as a man, right? So ask yourself that question, like, what's at stake? What is the area of change that I need to make? And what's at stake if I don't? And then here's what I want you to do. I want you to burn the ships. I want you to make a decision, a real decision, right? And I want you to become the man that God meant for you to be. If you don't know where to start, that's really what a lot of this ministry is about, is helping men figure out how to start super small, get on the path, and figure out how you can walk in that every single day, step by step, one step at a time. If you're not sure where to start, go to getinthefight.club / and then the number 7, getinthefight.club / the number 7. And there's a free 7-day email challenge that I can send to you. Walks you through the Start Super Small system that I created, helps teach you how to identify the area of change, what's really at stake, and then how to actually practically get moving in that direction, right? If you're not sure where to start, that's a helpful resource. Start there. But I'm telling you, even if not, if you're like, no, I don't want that, no problem. The thing that you need more than anything else is to make a decision. There's power in making a decision, a real decision, not a hopefulness, not a that would be nice thing, but a decision that says, man, I'm going to burn the ships. I'm going to make a decision, and this is my moment, right? When you decide to surrender to Jesus like that, like my friend did that was talking about at that campfire conversation, nothing will ever be the same. And that's what this is all about, all right? So burn the ships, make a decision, become the man that God meant for you to be. All right, that's it for today, man. Be a man of honor, discipline, strength, and joy. Get in the fight. We'll see you soon. Hey guys, thanks so much for being here today and listening to the show. Please be sure to head over to the website at getinthefight.club. And before you go, if you haven't already, please subscribe, click the like button, and leave us a positive 5-star review. It makes a huge difference whenever you do. Have a great day. Go get in the fight.